Hello, this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, and today it's my privilege and honor to have Donna Grady, a teacher at the Keller School.
Yes.
The Helen Keller School, which goes back to the blind lady that was taught, a deaf lady in Rentham.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she was a teacher. No, she was a pupil.
She was a pupil, and then she became a teacher. She went through graduate school in Massachusetts.
Okay. And actually became pretty world famous.
She did.
She did. Well, we're here today because of a ballot question. And I encourage everyone in their homes, they should have received this. There's 5 ballot questions. I encourage you to look at all 5 of them, read the pros and cons. And I've seen the ads today, so the ads for favor of doing away with the MCAS test are now on the air.
Yes.
And it is ballot question number 2
That's
that
correct.
we're going to talk about.
Yes.
Donna, what precipitated in the first place them having this test?
So the test was originally brought into Massachusetts as a means of providing funding for underfunded districts all over the state. And it was a way to have across-the-board assessments similar in every district. And that's how it started out, but it very quickly turned into something that it was not meant to be. And that was through actually looking at the test and seeing what it was testing.
Did the funding problem get resolved?
For some towns, it did for a short while because the money came from the federal government, is my understanding. And by having the MCAS brought into those towns, brought them the necessary monies to fix their schools. And that was a very long time ago. I want to say that was easily 20 years ago. It was a very different time.
But right from the beginning, there was always seemed to be 2 sides to whether to have the test or not.
Yes.
The test itself, could you describe it for me? What's on it, how you take it, what form does it take?
Sure. So recently, the test is generally taken online, although for students who need the accommodation of doing it pencil and paper, there is that. 90 or more or a higher percentage of kids take it online. There are a majority of the test is multiple choice, but there are math problems and there are definitely essay questions because students have to learn how to write particular essay questions in order to pass the test.
So is the grade predetermined that you have to reach to pass the test before the test is given?
Yes. I don't know what the passing grade is, but there is a passing grade. I want to say, and I'm not 100% sure, it's over 520. I'm not 100% sure though.
Where some other tests have shown that because of COVID, students aren't as prepared as they once were before it, mm-hmm. Is the grade for the test gone down or has it stayed the same?
Well, the MCAS test isn't really testing what the children are learning every year. It's general knowledge in certain subject areas. My guess would be that it has in fact gone down. What it's showing us though is right from the beginning is a lot of the subject matter that's on the test is economically specific. So children who have lesser economic circumstances may not be aware of circumstances that they're going to write about. So it's shown lower economic circumstances, those kids are at a disadvantage right away.
What do you mean by economic circumstances?
So children who may not have access to higher quality school systems, who may have lower income families at home, who may have housing instability or food instability. Some of the scenarios on the MCAS test, they speak to what a family of a higher means may experience. So those kids who don't have that experience, the day-to-day experience of mom and dad living at home and bringing home this, that, and the other thing, and what would you do if both parents had 2 cars, and writing about a scenario like that when other children, other students have never experienced that. They don't know what to make of that situation because they've never experienced it. So they're immediately at a disadvantage because the scenarios within the test are not geared towards all students. Does that make sense?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it doesn't make sense. But let me follow up with this. I pictured that the test is covering material that all school systems are teaching as part of their curriculum.
Not necessarily. A lot of it is just what is considered general knowledge, but what is general knowledge in a town like Wellesley may not be the same general knowledge that people have in a town like Chelsea, because what's available is different. It's not better or worse, it's just different. Gateway cities have a lot of disadvantages that other cities do not, and they have access to less funding and less services than other cities do. And that shows up in the way, in some of the wording of the MCAS. There are some general basic, say, math skills or English skills that are built into the test, but if English is not your first language, I don't believe there's MCAS in another language. Or if you have an intellectual disability or a differing ability, there's no accommodations made for that. So everybody takes the same test.
There are students with what's called today mental challenges or intellectual disabilities.
Yes.
Obviously, they're not going to pass this test.
That's right.
Do they take it, or what? Do they graduate, or what happens to those students?
So those students generally are given portions of it. It's required to graduate. There's no law that I know of that says students can't participate in a graduation if they've met all of the local requirements. But according to the state, if they don't get that, whatever that certain score is, they have failed MCAS and really should not be graduating. So you're right, there are children who will never pass the MCAS.
But the local community still could have them participate in the graduation and maybe give them some sort of certificate that they went through the school system? They
may. I think the important point is there's been such a stress on the MCAS as a graduation requirement in the 10th grade. So a typically developing student is in a very different place in 10th grade as opposed to, say, 12th grade. So you're basing a graduation on a test they took 2 years prior. There's such a stress on that graduation requirement that in fact, the test itself teachers are having to stop their curriculum and teach how to actually take the test. How do you take a multiple choice test? How do you write an essay so that you're passing? You had asked about, aren't the curriculum, doesn't it include all these things? In fact, that's not always the case. What we teach in a curriculum, Massachusetts is a standards-based state, meaning we have standards that by the end of the year, for every grade level, children need to reach those standards. That's what we teach. That's not necessarily what's in the test. So teachers feel a lot of pressure because it's a graduation requirement to be able to give students those skills to be able to pass a test. That's not honing lifelong learners, that's honing kids who can take a test. In schools, we always assess the kids. If I'm teaching X, Y, and Z, I need to know as a teacher, are they getting X, Y, and Z? And I'm constantly assessing them. And if my test or my assessment isn't working, I change the test. I want to know, do they have that knowledge? Are they able to carry that through their daily lives? The MCAS doesn't look for that. The MCAS is simply, is the student passing the test?
Now, you say they take this in 10th grade. Is it toward the end of the 10th grade, more in the springtime?
So there's different tests. There's an English language arts test, there's a math test, and I believe now there's a science test as well. Most of the testing is from March on. There's different periods. However, there is practice testing in lower grades as well. So the big test of, is your student going to pass, is in 10th grade, but there's practice testing in 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade. There are even kind of get ready to practice in 3rd and 4th grade.
I thought those tests, though, had a different purpose.
No. No.
Because they just came out with some results of those tests, right? Showing before COVID and after, and some tests were lower than last year.
Mm-hmm. Those are get ready for MCAS tests.
And they're called MCAS tests too?
I believe they're pre-MCAS. I'm not sure of the name, but they're get ready for MCAS tests. So the MCAS test is in 10th grade, but we're getting these kids ready on how to take the test much earlier than that, which is taking away from their day-to-day education.
I understand about 700, I don't know whether this is people that take the test, don't pass it.
About 700 yearly, yep.
Yearly. When you take the test in the 10th grade, right? You don't pass it. Can you take it in the 12th grade?
Yes, you can take it again. If you take it in 10th and don't pass, and now the test results don't come out till the following fall, you can take it again in 11th and you can take it again in 12th. So you do have other opportunities. But again, it's taking time out of whatever education you're doing at that time, your daily, your regular lessons for 11th and 12th grade to practice for the test. But you have 2 other opportunities to pass the test. It's just additional stress.
You get through high school, you actually go to college, and then you get a college degree. Can you go back and take the test again?
No.
No? I've heard of 89-year-old people that go to high school and graduate.
I agree.
But you can't go back and take this test again?
You have to pass it in order to get a true high school diploma. Because it's a graduation requirement.
Now, in the booklet,
Yep.
there's a recommendation coming up that if this test is eliminated, it's going to be eliminated in all the grades, all the pre-tests are going to be eliminated, or only the test for graduation?
The test itself is not going away. It's still a test. There needs to be a statewide test that shows our children learning. However, the
Why does there need to be?
So there's an accountability piece. Are the teachers doing their job? Right now, this is what we have, and this is what the MCAS was originally intended for. Are the teachers doing their job? Now, that said, we have one of the best school systems in the country. Before MCAS and after MCAS, we trust our educators. Most of our educators are very well prepared. So we have that. It's not because of the MCAS. Many jobs, many professions have a standard of accountability, and people are, we are public school teachers, and people want a level of accountability and feel that this has that. I don't know if I totally agree with that, because we have so many other things within our own systems that we do. The only thing that's going to happen is that the graduation requirement is taken away. The test is still going to be there, but it's not going to have that heavy stop everything. We have to teach the kids how to take the test and pass the test. It will be used for, we're teaching this in 6th grade, this in 7th grade, and so on. It would be a true formative assessment in the hopes that, yes, the material that we teach all along is incorporated into the MCAS test.
Okay, but the suggestion as the alternative is that they talk about school districts. Mm-hmm. I gather that every school is a school district, or am I wrong? What is a school district?
A school district would be a town, for example. So Franklin is one school district. Bellingham is another school district.
So every town has a school district?
Every town, and then there are some areas that are regional, that have more than one. They may just be very small towns, and they have several towns as a district.
Charter schools and religious schools that have high school, mm-hmm. Are those students required to take the test?
I don't believe that they are. And I don't know if it's because they're privately funded, for the most part. I know charter schools do get public monies. However, they also tend to make money and are for profit. So it's not just public monies like the public schools get.
I always thought a charter school was still considered a public school.
It is because it is to an extent because they still get public funds, but their accountability is very different than a public school who is all public fund.
The alternative is suggested that each school district would set its own standard for graduation, mm-hmm. which surprises me that in essence is taking it away from the Board of Education and putting it locally. Is that correct?
I've heard that. I haven't heard it to a huge extent. In Massachusetts, across the board, we're a standards-based state. We have state standards from the Department of Ed that we all have to meet by the end of the year, by the end of each grade level. I agree. I think taking it and saying, okay, Franklin's going to do these standards, Bellingham's going to do these standards. There needs to be some baseline standard for everybody. So all kindergarten has this, all 6th grade has this. And I think that's the hope, because there does need to be some regulation. But Massachusetts has some of the highest standards in the country. I don't imagine the Department of Ed letting that go.
Well, I could be absolutely wrong, but that's the way I'm reading question 2, is that it goes back to the community, which then leads me to ask, as a teacher, can you have your own grading system? In other words, when you're a teacher, high school or wherever, mm-hmm. right? I always experienced that teachers could grade me in different ways, or grade the class in different ways,
okay.
and put more emphasis. Say you had to do a paper,
yep.
right? That would be maybe 15% of your grade,
right?
And there'd be so many other grades, and then there'd be a grade. So can teachers have their own grading system, or do you have to grade your papers according to a state or district rules?
So there's a little bit of both. It really depends on what subject it is or what the piece is itself. Within a grade level, there are some teachers who may place English, for example, may place more emphasis on grammar and structure, as opposed to if it's a creative piece. Some teachers may place more on creativity, for example. But the end result is there is still a standard that at the end of the year, we are responsible for proving that you as a student has met that standard. And so what I'll say in Franklin, we have rubrics for everything that say, in order to meet that standard, you have done these 5 things by the end of the year. We're pretty strict with those, and I have found even just with my own children, that's true of most districts. Individual day-to-day pieces have a little more leniency in, if I'm looking and I know, okay, Frank has a differing ability, so I see progress in this way, where someone else is typically developing, and I may use a little bit different rubric, but ultimately it's my job as the professional to make sure that everybody reaches those year-end standards, and there is generally a rubric for that that's statewide.
What's a rubric?
So a rubric is really kind of rules to get to that end of year standard. There are certain criteria that have to be met, and a rubric is just criteria.
Are the Teachers Association generally, I gather the rubrics as you describe them are district-based or town-based?
Not a little bit, but not totally, because we do have the end of year standards that come from the Department of Ed. So, for example, in our evaluation, the teacher evaluation, there's so many indicators and elements that we in fact are meeting the needs of all students in how we plan and how we know the curriculum and how we assess the children and how we reach out to parents. I mean, there's so many. I think the rubric, the criteria for us is something like 65 pages. And so within that also touches, are we meeting these things for all of the standards we have? And that's, every teacher is aware of it, for their own performance, so you can't not be aware of it for your students' performance.
I would anticipate that out of the 700 that are still failing right now, that even if you go to a school-based or rubric or eliminate the test, that there would be still some students that aren't going to pass whatever the standard is.
That's true. I think the important thing that I'll keep saying is the test is not going away. The graduation requirement is going away. What, as teachers and as a profession, what we're looking for is we're asking the Department of Ed as professionals to trust us that the MCAS is one point in time, and we're saying take the graduation requirement away from that, have it be one data point, but we see these kids every day, all day, from the time they're little until the time they go through high school. Let us help them to learn how to be critical thinkers, how to be lifelong learners, how to have actual learning skills, not how to take the test skills. Because once they're out, they don't need to know how to take a test, but they need to know how to work with other people. They need to know how to think critically. They need to know how to ask questions. And that's what educators do. They teach children to do those, to have those lifelong skills. And then as they're going through all the different grade levels, let us assess them. We know the kids, we know what we're teaching them, we know the lifelong skills we're teaching them. Let us assess that we know they're getting those skills. And yes, there are going to be assessments and tests along the way, so that I know if I have a class of 24 and 20 of those children aren't getting those skills, then that's on me and I need to go back and teach it. But I'm not teaching them how to take the test. I'm teaching them the skills they need to be productive citizens and productive in the community.
Donna, what's the subject that we really haven't covered that a voter really needs to be aware of and know about? Could you talk to that?
Sure. I think, as I just said, I think people think that we're saying put the MCAS, get it out. We're not saying that. We're saying take the graduation requirement away. It is so stress-causing for kids. Kids worry about this like there is no tomorrow. My own two come home with headaches and are sick for days because of it. let us have kids enjoy their education and learn how to be learners. There are things in place in our current education system. Massachusetts has one of the best in the country. Let us do our jobs. Let us teach the kids to be learners and critical thinkers. And let's just have the MCAS be one point along the way. There is no reason to make kids sick and stressed out about one test to graduate.
At my age, I have to deal with stress every day.
Mm-hmm.
I would gather that as a teacher, and you're talking about other stuff, you need to teach kids how to deal with stress, because it's not going to go away, and they're going to run into it more and more stressful situations if they really haven't had stress in the 5th grade or the 4th grade. If they haven't dealt with stress, that's a critical component of life.
I don't disagree, but we are stopping everything that they're doing in school to focus on how to take a test. I would rather have students that are ready. They're having stress every day. Since COVID, we know that there's stress. They don't have the social structure that they have. I would rather have a student that knows how to learn, and if they're not getting the answers they want, I want to know that they know how to find the answers and that they're going to persevere and go out and get the answers, not that they're stuck because they don't know how to take a test. One test in the grand scheme of life should not halt a student's moving forward, and that's what MCAS is doing.
Donna, Grady, teacher here at the Keller School. I love your shirt and
Thank
flag.
you.
Is that a roadrunner, or what is the symbol?
That is the Keller Hawk.
The Keller Hawk.
I have no idea how we came up with the Keller Hawk.
Probably was flying around your school.
Could have been, could have been.
How can people reach you, or the mass teachers? How can they find out more if they have questions about question 2? There
Sure.
is a phone number and an address.
Yep.
But could you give us?
Sure. So the Mass Teachers Association is online at massteacher.org. There is a slew of information on there about the MCAS and why just the graduation requirement should be repealed. Anyone in town and around town who wants to reach me, I am at the Keller School. My email is on the Helen Keller website. And pretty much everyone in town has my phone number, my cell number. Please feel free to reach out to Frank or to me at the Keller School, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, Donna, Grady, and Frank Falvey, we want to remind you, you can vote now. You can vote by mail. You can go down and see Nancy, the town clerk. You can vote on Tuesday, November 5th, which is coming up really soon, at the at the field house at the high school between 6 and 8. And I'm sure Nancy and the Franklin DPW and Police Department are going to cordon off a large section so you can vote on these ballot questions. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.